The Viaduct Spector, written and told by Sudrian Rail Fan. A long time ago, before the formation of the Northwestern Railway, there was a railway that operated the west side of Sodor. This railway was known as the Sodor and Mainland Railway. The Sodor and Mainland Railway was going through a desperate time and had needed more help on the heavier loads, so the SMM constructed 5 Atlantic tanks to help with these demands. One of these Atlantic tanks had a bright train nameplate that read City of Vickerstown, but to all of his fellow friends, he was Vic. Vic was a hard worker, and no matter what train he was given, being prestigious coaches or dirty trucks, Vic did it all. But he and his siblings had one great flaw. They had high coal consumption, which led to an incapable pulling power and overall poor performance. These issues could have been fixed, but with the tight budget of the struggling company, nothing could be done. Even with the flaws, they would continue to work hard for many years, until one day. The First World War happened, and the engines were pushed to the limits, until Vic saw that his siblings were starting to disappear. They were sent away, he was told. They were going to help on another railway. You'll see them again one day. Vic had hope, and so he kept on working. Even when he didn't have the strength, he kept on puffing. Imagine his brothers and sisters steaming proudly somewhere far away, carrying soldiers, rescuing trains, doing their bit, and seeing their faces when the war was over. Years had passed, and the war had ended, but no one came back, and soon Vic started to ask questions. Where was his siblings? Why weren't they back? Why was he the only one left? Unfortunately, one day he would get his answer. One day, Vic was in the works for maintenance. Vic was now in a much worse state, and his steaming problems had only been getting worse. He was brought inside and waited for his turn to be repaired. He looked around the works, men banging their hammers, sparks shooting up from the stars. It was a busy and a noisy place. And then, in the corner of his eye, he saw something. In the back of the shed stood a boiler. To most people, it just looked like a boiler, but to Vic, it felt familiar. The boiler, the size, it looked the same as his own. Soon, an idea flew into his funnel. Maybe this was a new boiler to fix him and his siblings' steaming problems. This was why he was still here, to test out the new boiler to see if it would work. Soon came the workmen, and the repair started. After repairs had been complete, the workmen went to test fire him. Vic hoped that the new boiler had worked. They soon came back and lit his fire, and nothing. Vic felt the same. His new boiler felt the same. Was his boiler still the same? Vic looked around and saw that the boiler was still there. He was confused. If that wasn't a new boiler, then what was it? Vic started to leave the works until something else caught his eye. Against the far wall, there was bits of scraps, a dented smoke box, and a brass dome. He was still confused until he saw something that made his boiler run cold. On a pile of scrap metal laid a brass nameplate, blackened by the soot, but was still readable. City of Kildane. That was one of his siblings' name. That was his twin's name. Then it hit him. He'd been told they've gone to help, that they've been working, but they hadn't gone to the railways. Instead, they'd gone to the cutter's torch. All of them. Not long after, when he returned, the others would say that he was different, quiet, hard-eyed, wouldn't say a word, only just worked. Many tried to ask him what was wrong, but he said nothing. He had his answers. Late one night, he was given a passenger train to pull. Coaches were full of guests, the moon was full, and Vic had a nice fire going. Soon long after, the guard waved his flag and blew his whistle. The driver opened the regulator, and Vic was off. Vic puffed down the line with the coaches in tow, and soon Cowstoke Row came into view. The driver eased the regulator, but Vic did not slow down. In fact, he surged forward. Vic raced right through the station. His fire within him burned deeper, far harder than any other coal could make it. Faster, faster! The coaches clanged and screamed as they rocked and swayed. The passengers stared in terror. But then, trouble lay ahead. Ahead lay the terminus, a big grand station with a platform and a wall at the end of it that had recently been under construction and was not yet finished. But that wasn't the worst of it. Beyond the station lay a large, deep ravine. The crew panicked and tried everything to make it stop. The guard pulled the brakes, sparks flew, but nothing could stop him. "Vic, stop!" cried the driver. But Vic said nothing, only thundered on, until he burst through the platform, shattered the wall, and plunged into the ravine, dragging his coaches in tow, before letting out a long, deep whistle. When the rescue crew came, there was not much that could be done. All that was left was bodies, burnt wood, and twisted scrap metal. As for Vic, the only thing left of him that even resembled what he once was his nameplate, found beside the river. And after that, the railway had to close, and no one spoke much of what happened. Over time, the story began to fade into legend. Some say it wasn't real, while others believe that an engine had fell off the viaduct a long time ago. But we know the real story, don't we?
Every year, on the date of the accident, it runs again as a warning to others, plunging into the gap, shrieking like a lost soul.